My name is Amanda Preston and I teach second grade. I decided to design a lesson that required students to listen to a story online and share a summary of that story. To begin with, students will listen to a well-known story, Arthur or Two and Pup. Following reading, they will use a kids' reading software to record various story elements. The conclusion of this project will be using to write a summary of the story on an educational Facebook page called Edmodo. Students will have a chance to respond to peers' writings as well. Using the Common Communication Arts standards, students will read and comprehend literature, demonstrate an understanding of story elements, and describe the story from beginning to end. This lesson meets several of the National Education Technology Standard and Performance Indicators for students. Students will communicate and collaborate when sharing their summaries on Edmodo. They will use a digital story to gather information to complete a graphic organizer. Students will use critical thinking skills as they decide what story elements should be included in their summary post. Students will demonstrate a sound understanding of an online book website, inspiration, and Edmodo. According to the NETS standards for teachers, I will demonstrate a sound understanding of online book websites, Kidspiration, and Edmodo. I will set up an effective environment for this technology project, and I will maximize my students' learning by using curriculum and technology. The instructional objective for this lesson is: the second grade student will use a completed graphic organizer to produce a summary of an online book using www.edmodo.com. Student summaries will receive a score of 8% or better on the scoring rubric. There are several things I need to do ahead of time to assure that this lesson runs smoothly. I must locate appropriate and engaging online stories that are easily accessible to my students. I will need to reserve the computers and headphones using our online school calendar. I will create a summary hand that guides students through the summary writing process. I will create the graphic organizer using Kidspiration and make it accessible for all students. I will also create an Edmodo post for students to reply to. The scoring rubric will be created in a format that is easy for students to use and understand. This lesson is all about students. They will be listening, following along with the text, and illustrations during their online story. They will be manipulating the Kidspiration tool to fill in their graphic organizer. They will be responding in Edmodo. Basically, they'll be very busy. There are many ways to adapt this lesson for a variety of students. If students are lower readers, they can work with a partner to complete web and summary. Kidspiration offers picture prompts that could aid students in completing the graphic organizer. Students could record their summary instead of typing it, and there will also be a visual available for students able to see what elements are important for a summary. Higher level students could create higher level thinking questions to ask each other in Edmodo. They could also create a dictionary of new words that they heard in their story. Students will be assessed on their summary post. They will grade themselves using a rubric. They'll also grade the post using the same rubric. A conference was set up to share the rubrics and any comments. This lesson could be used for younger or older students simply by changing the degree of difficulty of the book and of what is written. It can be used with other content areas as well, depending on the book topic. At the start of the lesson, the students and I will work together as a class to complete all of the steps in the process. We will find and listen to an online story. We will access Kidspiration and complete the quick organizer. We will review summaries and practice posting together. We will view the scoring rubric and actually use it to our post. After this time together, students will be able to begin working on this project independently. Students will travel to one of the two sites, and after seeing their choices, select a story that appeals to them. If you click on the sites, you will be able to see their selections. The site that I'm going to right now has different sites such as Arthur stories or fairy tales. Arthur stories are really popular with my students, so I'll probably have them choose one of those to be on. And the cool thing is it loads tons and tons of different Arthur stories, topics, and things like that. The other site I'm not going to go to, but it's also online stories, and it has celebrities reading well-known children's stories. Students will be expected to follow along with the text and the illustrations. Students will use Kidspiration software to describe the characters, setting, beginning, middle, end, problem, and solution in the story. Here is an example of the graphic organizer. Students will simply click where I want to begin typing, and that's where they will fill in their information. The cool thing about this is they can access the story again at any time if needed. Students will need to print the graphic organizer so that it is by their side as they type their summary. They also choose to have the summary hand to them as they prepare for their summary writing. This summary hand is a great visual to remind students what is important to include in a summary. This is a familiar tool in our classroom. Students post their summary. When they finish, they have the opportunity to respond to their peers' summaries. Here is an example of an edmodo screen. Students type in the white box and then hit send. And look at the bottom of the screen, you can see where some of my students had replied to each other on a previous topic. Students will score themselves using a rubric. I will use the same rubric to evaluate them. The two of us meet to confer on the results. Here is an example of a rubric. Students are scored on each story elements mentioned on the graphic organizer, as well as capital letters, punctuation, and spelling. They also receive points for responding to others. Each category is worth 2 points maximum for a total of 16 points. Students must receive at least 13 points to meet the objectives stated at the beginning of this lesson. Students will text, understand characters, setting, and plot, and describe an overall story. In this lesson, students will listen to an online story, complete a graphic organizer, and post their written summary in edmodo to have a successful project. Here are my resources. The top two resources are the online book websites that I showed you before, and the bottom resource is the edmodo site. Thank you for allowing me to share this online book project with you.